The broken crown far beyond the stars, on a glowing world called Zareth, stood a palace built from light and crystal, once a symbol of peace and beauty. Now silent and empty, its queen, Ilara, had not been seen in years. She was once called the Radiant Queen, the jewel of the galaxy. Her wings shimmered like morning suns, and her laughter could melt the coldest heart. But that was before the war, before the storm that tore her sky apart now. Her beauty was hidden beneath a cracked silver mask, its edges sharp and cold, her reflection shattered from every mirror in the palace. She no longer looked upon herself. Not since the day she returned from battle burned, scarred and broken. Her people still loved her, but they also feared her. They whispered that the queen's heart had turned to stone, that her kindness had burned away with her face. The court grew quiet, and the galaxy slowly forgot the light of Zareth's queen. One night, when a violet storm rolled across the horizon, a strange signal reached the palace gates. A ship had crashed on the outer moon, its beacon weak but alive. The queen's advisors urged her to ignore it, yet she gave a silent command, "Bring the survivor to me." Hours later, the guards led a human into the throne hall. His uniform was torn, his hands covered in grease, his face marked by exhaustion, but his eyes were steady, brave, curious. He was Captain Elias Grant of the Terran fleet. He bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I mean no harm. My ship was damaged during transit. I only ask permission to repair it." His tone was calm, sincere. From her throne of dark crystal, Queen Alara tilted her masked face toward him. "A human," she whispered, her voice soft but sharp like glass. "Why come here?" Of all worlds, Elias met her gaze without fear. "I did not choose the crash, Your Majesty, but I will not apologize for being alive." Her guards tensed, expecting punishment for his bold words, but the queen only stared, the golden light in her eyes flickering behind the mask. "Do you even know who you speak to?" she asked. "A queen who saved her people," he said simply, "and a ruler who still carries the weight of their hope." The words hit her like a forgotten melody. She had not heard such honesty in years. Most bowed, most trembled, but this human stood tall, speaking as if her scars did not exist. "You speak boldly for a broken visitor," she said coldly, though her voice trembled slightly. "And you hide gently for a broken soul," Elias replied, his tone kind, not mocking, just real. The hall fell silent, every guard frozen. Even the flickering torches seemed to listen. The queen's breath caught behind her mask. "Do you mock me?" she asked. "No, Your Majesty," he said softly. "I've seen what war does to people. Scars only mean you survived what others could not." For a moment, her mask hid everything, but behind it, her heart ached. No one had ever said those words to her. No one had dared to speak to her as an equal. "Enough," she said weakly. "Take him to the guest chambers." The guards obeyed. But as they led Elias away, he looked back once more and said quietly, "Even broken stars still light the sky." "Your Majesty?" She froze, her chest tightened. The words echoed in her mind long after he left. "Broken stars," she whispered to herself. That night, alone in her chamber, she walked to the only mirror that remained in her palace. It was cracked, fogged, and half covered by a black cloth. She lifted the cloth slowly and stared. Her reflection stared back. A queen with eyes too bright for her own comfort, scars tracing her cheek. The mask half off, she trembled, remembering his words. "Even broken stars still light the sky." For the first time in years, she did not turn away from her reflection. She whispered, "Do you really see light in this ruin?" "Human." Outside the palace walls, Captain Elias stood under Zareth's twin moons. Gazing up at the glowing towers, the alien wind brushed against his hair. He felt something in that throne room. Something human, yet not. He had looked into the eyes of a queen who had forgotten her worth, and somehow he wanted to remind her. The night deepened. Lightning flashed across the horizon, and in the palace above, Queen Ilara removed her mask completely for the first time since the war. Her tears reflected the stormlight, and she whispered one final time before sleep, "Broken stars still shine." And though she did not know it yet, that single meeting with a human would begin the story that would shake the heavens and teach a queen who called herself ugly what it meant to be seen again. The man who would not bow the next morning. The palace corridors filled with quiet whispers. Everyone was talking about the human who had spoken to the queen as if she were ordinary. Servants peeked from behind silver curtains. Guards shared uneasy glances. None could believe that a mortal from a distant world had looked into the queen's masked face without fear. Queen Elara sat by her window, the light of Zareth's twin suns spilling across her mask. Her thoughts still tangled in the human's words. Even broken stars still light the sky, she repeated to herself again and again. His voice had sounded so calm, so certain, as if he truly saw light where she saw ruin. A knock echoed on her door. Her chief attendant entered carefully. "Your Majesty, the human requests an audience," he said. She hesitated. No one had ever requested to see her twice. "Let him enter," she whispered. Though her heart beat faster than she wished to admit, Elias walked in, cleaner now. Wearing a simple black uniform repaired with palace fabric, he bowed lightly. "Your Majesty, I wanted to thank you for shelter and supplies," he said. She gestured toward the broken console beside her. "You are an engineer, are you not?" "Yes, a mechanic by duty, but sometimes a listener by choice," he said with a small grin. Her lips curved slightly beneath the mask, though she hid it well. "And what do you listen to, human?" she asked. "Stories, machines, silence," he said. "Everything that people forget has a voice." Her eyes flickered with faint surprise. "You speak strangely," she murmured. "Most who come here tremble." "I don't bow to ghosts," he replied softly. "And you are not one." The word struck her harder than she expected. For years she had felt like a shadow, a symbol, not alive, not dead. Yet this man spoke to her as if she were still a woman beneath the crown. "You risk much by speaking this way," she said. "Then let it be risked," he answered. "Sometimes truth deserves it." For a long moment, they simply stood in silence. The hum of the palace lights filled the air, and the tension between them shifted from defiance to quiet understanding. At last she asked, "Why do you not fear me?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because scars tell me what battle someone survived, not what they lost." Her hand trembled against the mask, her voice softer now. "If I remove this mask, you would regret those words." "Try me," he said, almost a whisper. She turned away, the sunlight cutting across her silver armor. "You would not understand, human, your kind lives short. You forget pain fast." "That's not true," Elias replied, stepping closer. "We just learn to carry it. And sometimes we help others carry theirs." Her chest tightened. She had forgotten how it felt to have someone step closer instead of further away. "Enough," she said quickly. "You will help repair my orbital docks." "Then leave my world," he nodded. "As you wish." "Your Majesty." But before leaving, he added quietly, "You hide behind a mask to protect yourself, not to rule. Maybe it's time you remembered which came first." When he left, she stood still for a long while. Her reflection caught faintly in the glass of her chamber, and for the first time since the war, she removed the mask not in shame but in thought. That evening, from the upper towers, she watched him working on the damaged ships, surrounded by alien engineers, his laughter echoing faintly up the metal corridors. Something about that sound made her feel human again. Below, Elias looked up once, sensing her gaze. Though he could not see her clearly, he smiled toward the balcony and returned to work. The queen turned away, whispering softly, "The man who would not bow." And though she meant it as a warning, her voice carried a strange warmth she could not explain. The queen without a mask the next dawn painted Zareth's skies in soft pink and gold. The towers shimmered again for the first time in years, as if the world itself sensed a change within its queen. Queen Alara rose early, unable to sleep. Her mind replayed every word the human had spoken. "You hide behind a mask to protect yourself, not to rule." Those words burned deeper than she cared to admit. She stood before her mirror, the same cracked glass she once despised. Her reflection fractured into 1,000 pieces. But this morning, she didn't turn away with slow, trembling hands. She lifted the mask from her face and placed it aside. Her scars caught the sunlight, glowing faintly like silver veins. She expected disgust to rise inside her, but it didn't. Instead, she felt something strange, freedom. In the hangar below, Elias was already at work. His sleeves rolled up, sparks flying from the engines as he repaired the damaged royal ship. The alien engineers watched him closely, whispering among themselves, amazed at how a human worked with such patience and confidence. He wasn't afraid of alien technology. He spoke to it, coaxed it, listened. When the queen appeared at the hangar balcony, the workers froze. She had come without her mask. Her guards gasped softly, but she ignored them, her steps graceful yet uncertain. Elias turned when the air shifted. His eyes widened slightly. He didn't move, didn't bow, just smiled. "Good morning, Your Majesty," he said, his tone steady, respectful, but not fearful. The queen looked down at him. "Do you not find me monstrous?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling like a song almost forgotten. Elias wiped his hands and stepped forward. "No, Your Majesty, I find you honest," he said simply. She blinked, unsure what to say. "Scars tell stories, not ugliness," he continued. "They mean you survived something that wanted to destroy you." For a long moment, she said nothing. Her eyes softened, and those who stood nearby felt an invisible warmth fill the air. Something between them changed again. Something deeper than curiosity. It was understanding. "Your words are strange." "Human," she whispered. "But they heal more than medicine ever did." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll keep talking." Days passed, and the Queen began visiting the hangar more often. At first to inspect his work, then to ask questions, then simply to listen. She found herself laughing at his dry humor, learning human idioms, and even sharing her own forgotten stories. Elias listened as if every word she said mattered, and for the first time in many lifetimes she felt seen. One evening, while they stood on the balcony watching the stars, she asked softly, "Elias, do humans really see beauty in imperfection?" He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the twin moons. "We do, Your Majesty, because perfection never teaches us anything. It's the cracks that let the light in." Her breath caught again. Those words struck her heart like music. She smiled faintly. "And if the light fades," she asked. "Then we light it again," he replied. "Even if it's only a spark." The night wind carried their words into the endless sky. Below them, the city lights shimmered like scattered jewels, and above, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter. When Elias left the balcony, the Queen stayed, her hand on the railing. Looking at her reflection in the starlight, she whispered to herself, "The Queen without a mask," and smiled for the first time without fear. But in the shadows of the palace, eyes watched them both. Advisors whispered in corners. "The Queen grows soft," they murmured. "She listens to a human." Jealousy and fear brewed in the dark, and soon, someone would decide that the Terran must leave Zareth, alive or not. Yet for now the Queen stood in peace, unaware that love, like war, was already approaching her gates, and this time, it would not burn her face but her heart. Whispers in the court. The palace had begun to breathe again. Where once there was silence, now there was laughter in the halls. The servants moved without fear. The gardens had been opened. Sunlight touched the marble floors again. All because their Queen, the one they thought forever lost behind her mask, had begun to live again. But not everyone in the court celebrated. In the shadowed corridors, her advisors gathered, their faces hidden beneath hoods of gold. "The Queen grows weak," one whispered. "She walks among the workers. She speaks to a human," another hissed. "A creature from a world of savages." "She smiles," one said bitterly. "And a smiling queen forgets how to rule." They spoke in quiet hatred, not knowing that Ilara's most loyal guard. Captain Rin stood nearby, his heart torn between loyalty and doubt. He had protected his queen since before the war, but he had never seen her so alive nor so vulnerable. That night, as the stars shimmered over Zareth, Queen Ilara dined alone in the royal observatory, her thoughts miles away. She watched Elias from the window below, still working late among his tools, repairing the damaged ship that had brought him here. Her hand rested on the table, her eyes soft. She whispered to herself, "Why does he make me feel like this? I am a queen, not a dreamer." The door opened behind her. Captain Rin entered, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but there are concerns among the council," she sighed. "Concerns," she said quietly, "or accusations?" Rin hesitated. "They believe the human's presence endangers your image. They say you are..." "Distracted." Ilara smiled faintly. "Distracted," she repeated. "Tell them their queen is finally awake. That should distract them enough." "Majesty," Rin said carefully. "They speak of removing him permanently." Her eyes darkened. The soft light around her dimmed. "If anyone touches him, I will end their bloodline myself," she said coldly, the old fire in her voice returning. Rin bowed again, both terrified and proud. "Yes, Your Majesty." The next morning, Elias was summoned to the Queen's garden. It was the first time he had seen the royal sanctuary, a place of glowing trees and crystal rivers that hummed with life. She stood beneath a silver tree, her wings of faint light stretched behind her. No mask, no crown, only the woman beneath. "You sent for me?" he asked, bowing slightly. She turned with a faint smile. "You work even when no one watches. Why?" He shrugged. "Machines don't fix themselves, and if they did, they'd still need someone to care." She laughed softly, the sound so gentle the wind itself seemed to pause. You humans, she said, you find light in the smallest things. He looked at her. And you, your majesty, find reasons to hide it. She grew quiet. Stepping closer. You think I hide? She asked. I think you've forgotten how to stop, he replied. His tone calm but full of meaning. For a moment they stood close enough to feel the warmth of each other's breath. The queen's heart raced, but then she pulled away, her expression torn between duty and desire. Elias, there are those who do not welcome you here, she said. You must be careful, he smiled softly. I've never been good at careful. That night, as he returned to his quarters, he noticed the lights flicker in the corridor. A shadow moved at the edge of his vision. Then silence, his instincts sharpened, he turned quickly, and a knife gleamed in the dark before it struck. A violet flash of energy burst through the air. A guard fell to the ground, stunned by a pulse of royal power. Queen Alara stood behind him, her hands glowing with fury.
I warned them, she said, her voice shaking.
Not with fear, but with rage. Elias looked at her, breathing hard. You saved me, he said quietly. You shouldn't have been here. I couldn't risk losing the only one who sees me, she said, her voice trembling with something deeper than fear. He stepped closer, gently touching her wrist. Then maybe it's time you let the galaxy see you too. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in years she didn't feel like a queen or a monster, only a woman, standing before someone who saw her as neither. Outside, thunder rolled across Zareth's skies, as if the world itself sensed what was coming. The court was stirring, the whispers turning into plans. The queen had chosen her heart, and the galaxy would soon make her pay for it. The War of Hearts the next day dawned heavy and silent. A strange unease hung over the golden city of Zareth. The people whispered of lightning in the queen's eyes and shadows moving in the halls. Queen Alara walked through the corridors with her wings dimmed. Fury burning under her calm voice, she had nearly lost Elias the night before, and she knew it had not been chance. In the council chamber, her advisors waited, tall figures in silver robes, their faces unreadable when she entered. The air itself seemed to freeze. Which of you ordered the attack? She asked quietly, her voice like a storm ready to break. No one answered. Their silence was a confession. You call me weak, she continued, but weakness is hiding behind fear. She looked at each of them, her gaze burning. I am still your queen, and as long as I breathe, Zareth will remember what honor means. Her words echoed like thunder. None dared to meet her eyes, but they bowed slowly, pretending loyalty while planning treachery. Behind those bows, envy still lived. Meanwhile, Elias worked in the hangar, unaware of the storm building above him. His hands moved across the damaged star drive, sparks lighting his face, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He kept remembering how Alara had stood between him and death, her power shaking the walls, her eyes filled with something more than rage, something human. That night she came to him quietly, wearing a cloak of dark silk to hide her identity. He turned when he felt her presence. Your Majesty, he whispered. You shouldn't be here, she smiled faintly, and yet, here I am. They stood under the flickering hangar lights, surrounded by silent machines and the soft hum of engines. They will not stop, she said, her voice low. They will try again. They fear what they do not understand. Elias nodded slowly. Then let them fear. You've faced worse than politics, he said, trying to smile, but his voice carried worry. I can fight wars, she replied, but this is not war. This is hatred dressed as loyalty. He stepped closer, looking at her eyes glowing faintly beneath her hood. Then fight it your way, he said softly. Not as a queen, but as the woman they forgot to see. Her breath caught. The world seemed to pause around them. You speak as if you know me, she whispered. Maybe I'm just learning to, he answered. Their silence spoke more than any words for a brief moment. Alara forgot her crown, forgot her scars, forgot the centuries of loneliness that had carved her soul hollow. In that moment she was just Alara, and he was the first to see her without fear. But destiny was never kind to hearts like theirs. Suddenly alarms rang through the palace, the sound sharp and endless. Red lights painted the halls. Alara turned sharply, her wings flaring with light. What is it? Elias shouted. Sabotage, she replied. They've triggered the orbital core. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed his tools and ran beside her. The queen's guards followed as she sprinted through the corridors, her voice commanding, calm but fierce. Seal the upper chambers. Reroute the energy lines. When they reached the control room, Smoke filled the air. One of the reactors was glowing too bright. Unstable, Elias dove under the console. His hands moving fast. "It's overheating," he shouted. "I can stabilize it, but I need 10 seconds. The guards hesitated. The Queen stepped forward. "Do it," she said, her power flaring. She raised her hands, channeling her own life energy into the power grid. Sparks burned across her palms, her eyes shining like dying stars. "Stop. You'll burn yourself," Elias yelled. "You'll die." "If I don't, we all die," she said through gritted teeth. He reached out, grabbing her hand, his voice breaking. "Then let me burn with you." The overload subsided. The lights dimmed. Silence fell. The energy stabilized, and the hum of the core returned to normal. Ilara stumbled, her body trembling. Elias caught her before she fell, their faces inches apart, the air between them electric. "You're insane," he said softly, his voice shaking with both anger and awe. "Perhaps," she whispered weakly. "But you're alive." He smiled, tears in his eyes. "You really are something else." She looked at him, exhausted, her hand brushing his cheek lightly. "Maybe you are too." Outside, the stars of Zareth pulsed brighter, unaware that a war had just begun, not of armies, but of hearts, one between duty and desire, between alien pride and human warmth. And though the night was quiet again, both of them knew this peace would not last. The court would not forgive her defiance. The galaxy would not understand her choice. But for now, in the flicker of the dying lights, they didn't care. The Queen's rebellion. The storm had finally broken. Yet the silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Zareth's towers stood tall, but unrest brewed within their silver walls. The council had seen enough. Their whispers turned to threats, and their fear became poison. Queen Alara sat upon her throne once more. Her crown rested beside her, untouched. She had not worn it since the reactor night. The scars on her hands still glowed faintly where the energy burned through her. Elias stood in the shadow of the grand hall, silent, watchful. His presence alone was enough to make the nobles tremble. One of the elder advisors stepped forward, his voice dripping with venom. "Your Majesty, this human has infected your judgment. Our traditions are collapsing under his shadow." Alara's gaze was calm, but her voice cut sharper than steel. "My traditions were built on silence and fear. If this is collapse, then let it fall." Gasps filled the chamber. The council erupted in protest. "He is an outsider," another shouted. "He belongs to a world of war and ruin. He will bring it here." Elias stepped forward before she could answer, his voice steady. "You speak as if your world is untouched by ruin," he said. "But I've seen your towers empty. Your people whisper like ghosts. Your queen hiding behind a mask of pain." "Enough," one of them hissed. "You dare speak in this chamber?" "I dare because I've bled for peace," he said, his eyes fierce. "And I've seen what happens when fear rules instead of hope." Alara rose, her wings unfolding with a burst of violet light. The hall fell silent. "He speaks truth," she declared. "For too long I ruled as they wanted me to. Unseen, unfeeling, untouched by the world beyond my throne." Her voice trembled. "But I will not rule that way again." Her crown lifted from the throne table, floating in the air between her and the council. "If the price of feeling is rebellion," she said, "then I will pay it gladly." With that, she crushed the crown in her hand, shards of gold and crystal scattering across the marble floor like dying stars. The hall gasped, the sound echoing through eternity. "You have lost your mind," one advisor cried. "You doom yourself, Your Majesty." Alara turned slowly, her eyes burning with fierce light. "No," she said. "For the first time, I have found it." She turned to Elias, her voice soft but firm. "We leave tonight," he hesitated. "Leave?" he asked. "Where? Anywhere but here," she said. "The universe is wide enough for those who still dream." That night, the palace slept under storm clouds, while secret engines hummed deep in the hangar. The Queen stood beside Elias as the royal ship, the one he had rebuilt with his own hands, came to life. "You know this means war," he said quietly, his hand on the control panel. "I know," she replied, "but wars end. And chains never do." She looked back once, seeing her world for the last time. Her reflection in the glass. A queen without a crown, a woman without a mask, a light reborn. The hangar gates opened, violet fire lit the sky, and the ship rose into the stars, leaving behind the world that could not love her. But Zareth would not forget. The council's rage became pursuit. Fleets were launched, beacons ignited. "The Queen has defected," they cried. "She has betrayed the throne for a human." Across the stars, Alara stood beside Elias on the ship's deck, watching the star lines stretch, her voice soft but steady. "They will come for us," Elias nodded. "Then let them come. We'll show them what it means when a human and a queen stand together." Her smile was faint, but filled with power. "You think we can face them?" she asked. "I don't think," he said. "I believe." She turned toward the window, the stars reflecting in her eyes, and whispered, "Then let them learn what belief looks like." Behind them, the engines roared, and two hearts burned brighter than any sun, a queen who defied her crown and a man who defied the galaxy. Together they began a rebellion not of armies but of love, courage, and light. And somewhere far behind, Zareth trembled, for its lost queen was no longer broken. She had become the storm. The last light of Zareth, the stars tore open before them, endless ribbons of light stretching across the dark. The royal ship drifted between them like a silent flame. On its bridge stood two souls who had defied a world, Queen Alara of Zareth and Captain Elias Grant of Earth, the queen without a crown, and the human who saw beauty in her scars. Behind them, fleets hunted through the void, their engines glowing red with fury. Zareth's council had declared her a traitor, the first in their history. They wanted her silenced, erased, forgotten, but the galaxy had already heard the whispers. The queen fled with a human. In every system, those words became stories. Stories became legends, and legends turned into sparks of hope for those who lived under cold crowns. Alara stood at the viewport, her eyes on the stars, her reflection glowing faintly against the glass. "They will find us soon," she said softly, her voice calm. Elias moved beside her, his hand brushing the console. "Then let them," he replied. "I'd rather stand and fight than run forever." She turned to him. "You would die for a world that isn't yours." "Maybe," he said, "but you're not just your world anymore." Her heart trembled. The words felt heavier than battle. "If they capture us," she whispered, "they will make an example of you." "Then make sure they remember it," he said with a small smile. Her laughter was soft, tired, but real. "You humans," she said, always smiling before the storm. "It's how we win," he answered. "We keep smiling even when everything burns." Before she could reply, alarms flared across the control deck. The radar filled with crimson light. Zareth's royal fleet had found them, 10 ships, massive and armed, blocking every escape vector. Elias grinned faintly. "Guess the party's here." Alara's wings unfolded, glowing brighter than the console lights. "They want their queen," she said coldly. "Let them come take her." Outside, the stars ignited in battle. Plasma beams streaked through the black. The ship shuddered. Elias gripped the controls, weaving through the storm. "We can't outrun them forever," he shouted. "I know," she said, stepping to the center of the room, her hands glowing. "But we don't have to." She closed her eyes. Energy pulsed from her chest, her voice rising like thunder. "For Zareth," she whispered. "For every soul they silenced." Light exploded from her form, flooding the ship, spreading through the ether like a living sun. The enemy's sensors blinded, their engines failing. The queen's power, the same energy she once used to build her city, now roared against the darkness. Elias shielded his eyes, the ship trembling around them. "You'll destroy yourself," he shouted. "Stop." She smiled faintly through the radiance. "No, Elias. I'm not breaking this time." With her final surge, the light burst outward, enveloping the fleet, then fading slowly into the void. Silence followed. The radar cleared. The ships of Zareth were gone. Only drifting embers remained. The power faded from her body. Her wings dimmed. Elias caught her as she fell, her breathing shallow but peaceful. "You're safe," she whispered weakly. "The stars are safe." He held her close, his voice trembling. "You saved everyone again, Alara." Her lips curved faintly. "You were right, human," she said. "Even broken stars still light the sky." Her hand fell limp, the glow fading from her skin. The bridge was silent except for the hum of engines and the quiet sob of a man who had seen galaxies burn. Elias sat there for hours holding her, the endless light of the cosmos stretching beyond the glass. But then something stirred. Her crown, shattered in part 6, began to glow faintly where it lay on the floor. The shards lifting, merging into new form, not gold this time, but light. Alara's eyes opened slowly, her breath returning, her body shining once more. Not as the Queen of Zareth, but something greater. Her voice soft as dawn. "I told you, Elias," she whispered. "Stars don't die, they change." He laughed through tears. Then you've become one, she looked out the window, where new constellations formed from the wreckage of her fleet. No, she said, we have, and there, in the endless void, the galaxy witnessed a miracle, a queen reborn from light and a human whose faith turned war into legend. From that day, travelers who passed through that star system swore they saw two shapes in the light, a woman with wings of fire and a man beside her, smiling toward eternity. They called it the last light of Zareth. And in every corner of the galaxy, it became a story told in whispers, of love that defied crowns, of a human who taught a queen that even broken stars can shine again.